There was a time when I genuinely believed I was good at receiving feedback. After all, I'm a coach. I talk about self leadership. I encourage people to stay curious. And I work with teams to inspect, adapt, and learn. So, of course, I can handle feedback. It's what I deal with regularly, after all. Until I received one that completely shook me. And suddenly, all those lovely things I knew about being open, reflective, curious, they seems to pack their bags and they left the building. They flew away without giving me any notice. By the way, if we haven't met, I'm Tutuario. I am a leadership and agile coach, and I've spent years working with leaders and teams around having better conversations, how we can grow and have sustainable change. I've also spoken about the practical and emotional side of feedback at conferences because the more I work with people and the more I work on myself, the more convinced I am that feedback isn't simply a communication skill. It is a leadership, self leadership practice. And I didn't arrive at this conclusion from a textbook. I lived the experience. Let me take you back to the moment that changed how I thought about feedback. A while ago, an organization I worked with was going through a period of layoffs, and my role was potentially at risk. At the same time, I had several things happening in my personal life. I was already carrying a lot of emotional things. Then, in the middle of all that uncertainty, I received a written feedback from a senior colleague. Now, this was someone I had worked with for several months. We've had conversations, we've had one to ones, but the particular concerns that were raised in this feedback had never been raised with me. Instead, that feedback went straight to my manager. And when I read it, I froze. My heart skipped. I genuinely felt as though I'd been hit in the stomach because I wasn't sure if this would impact my work. I said, why me? Why this time? But wait, all this why me, why now wasn't the only conversation happening. There were other conversations going on inside my head. And that conversation was so loud. One word, one voice said, deny it. That's not true. Then another one appeared and said, actually, you know what? I've got some feedback for them too. I want to retaliate. I want to pay them back. Oh, yes. I want to pay them back in their own coin. You do me, I do you. Very, very quickly, my brain cooperated with me. My brain cooperated with me and produced an extremely comprehensively long list of everything this person had ever done wrong. That list was long. It was residing in my head. You know, when you want to see wrong things, it's always present. We are all human. They are not a saint. We all have flaws. Then another voice arrived very quickly. Hey, Tutu, protect yourself. I started thinking, maybe I should stop talking around this person. Maybe I should keep my distance. You know, Tutu, when you see them coming like this, just go another way. And when we are in team meetings, maybe if I don't say something, they won't have anything else to use against me. And while all this was going on, when the initial emotional turbulence started settling down, I started calming down. Another version of me appeared, the analyzer. I started replaying conversations I've had in the past with this person. I dissected every interaction. I thought about, what did I say? What did they mean? When did they start? What did I miss? And then another voice came. You should have known, Tutu. You should not have handled this like that. You should not have done that. Maybe you should have. Maybe you should. And before I knew it, I moved from receiving feedback about something I had done to questioning something about who I was. That's when something began to fascinate me about feedback. Not the exact feedback itself, but about my response to the feedback, because I knew all the right things intellectually. Stay curious, listen, reflect, don't become defensive. But Knowing what to do and having the capacity to do it when you're emotionally triggered are two completely different things. And that was where this stopped being a simple lesson about feedback for me. It became a lesson about self-leadership, because self-leadership isn't really tested when everything is going nice and comfortable. It is tested when something touches you, maybe your ego, your confidence, your reputation, your sense of identity. Is what happens in that tiny space between something has triggered me and what am I going to do about it now? I began paying attention to those different voices that had appeared in me. The one that wanted to fight back, the one that wanted to justify, the one that wanted to deny, the one that wanted to analyze everything, the one that wanted me to just disappear and not show up anywhere that person was, the one that demanded perfection from me, the one that was whispering silently, maybe you are simply not enough. And I started asking myself three questions. Why do we react this way? Why does feedback feel so deeply personal? Perhaps the most important of them all was, how do we shorten the distance between reaction, reflection, and learning? Those questions eventually led me to recognize a pattern in our defensive responses to feedback, a pattern I later developed into the fade-away mental model. But I'm not going to unpack that model today. I promise you we will get there. Think about the last piece of feedback that really got under your skin, the one you replayed afterwards, the one you argue with in your head. I mean, the one you smiled politely at and then thought about for the next 3 days. That particular one. You know what I'm talking about. What did you do? Did you defend, explain, withdraw, overthink, or did you immediately turn the feedback against yourself? Now, relax, relax. Don't judge your answers. I want you to just notice it, because the first act of self leadership isn't changing your reaction overnight, it's becoming aware enough to see it, because noticing it may be the first step towards leading yourself differently. When feedback feels threatening, there may be much more happening inside us than the words we've just heard or we've read. In the next video, we will explore what is actually happening when feedback feels like a threat and why some of us fight, we withdraw, or some of us simply freeze. Until then, keep growing and keep challenging yourself. Bye for now. I'll see you in the next one.